Town and Province is made possible by a local journalism initiative grant from the Community Radio Fund of Canada, a program supporting the creation of original civic journalism through Heritage Canada.
I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Town and Province. We're kicking off 2026 with the sit down with our MP for St. John, St. Croix, John Williamson. Thank you, John, for being my first guest of 2026. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I didn't know we were kicking off a new show, so this is exciting. Congratulations and good luck.
Well, thank you so much. I wish we were at a different time in world history, but I think we have to start off by talking about everything that has been going on in the world since 2026 began. But I'll start with the World Economic Forum and Carney's speech, which definitely captured the attention of not just Canadians, but people around the world. Yeah. What was your impression after hearing this almost 20-minute speech?
So, look, I thought he did identify some real problems that we're facing vis-a-vis our relationship, not only with the United States, but around the world. And I think that's one reason why the speech has gathered the attention it has, because I think it spoke for a lot of countries. So it was interesting in that sense. I'm not sure where it leaves Canada, though. We're still the only country out there without a deal with the U.S. administration, President Trump. Tariffs under his leadership, Mark Carney's, have only gone up in this country, putting our economic security more and more at risk. And I'm not sure a speech like that, while I think it again met the moment in terms of what people are feeling, I'm not sure it helps his bargaining position with Donald Trump, because the very next day the president was there as well, and he did have Mark Carney in Canada in his sights, and I don't think that's going to leave us in a good position. I want to see an agreement with the United States on good terms on both sides. But I think that requires that we be focused and we deal with the Americans face to face, and not be taking shots at the president the day before he's there in a forum that he's going to obviously hear and respond to.
Mm-hmm. Trump definitely, you could tell he took offense to Carney's speech. Yeah. He even addressed him as Mark, not Prime Minister Carney. But some people are saying this speech did call for middle ground countries like Canada and Europe to unite. It's a bold statement. He didn't name names so much in his speech, but definitely that was an underlying message that countries like Canada should team up, not build our own fortresses with like-minded nations.
And I think that's smart, but in politics, it's often smarter to do strategy and not talk strategy. So let's get it done. Let's secure and foster better relations with trading partners around the world. But so far, and I recognize people, I think a lot of people are applauding Mr. Carney, but his record's not been very good since he's been Prime Minister. We don't have a deal. Tariffs are going up. There's more economic uncertainty. Investment in this country is falling because of that, because investors, and that's Canadian businesses, are very concerned about investing in this country when they don't know what the rules of the games are. And again, it's not like Canada is with a large pack. We're on the outlier. We're the only country that does not have a deal with the United States.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a weird time in the sense that I think people, Canadians, even Americans, we wonder, is this a time when you're seeing threats to Greenland from the U.S.? Is it a time to unite? Is it a time when the economy really should come second? At what point should we feel emboldened to act, to say something, to stand up for what we believe in? It feels like it's a very, very fragile position that we're in.
Well, look, I think that you've kind of hit the question really direct. Where do we want to land on this? People should just be aware that standing up like that will come with potential economic cost and a decline in our quality of life. Look, I mean, I've long heard and believe that the first job of any prime minister is twofold. One, to keep the country together, and that is usually in reference to Quebec separation. And number two is to maintain a good working relationship with the United States, because our economic dependence, our economic livelihood and well-being is based on that relationship. Now the Prime Minister did talk about kind of divergence and setting up new trade relations. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but those reforms are going to take years and years and years. Something we should pursue, along with spending more in the military. But again, these are all going to require sacrifices. And I know it certainly with the way the president sometimes kind of picks on Canada. It feels good to kind of really kind of respond. But I think a lot of Canadians are responding in a way that they're comfortable with. We see travels to Maine, for example, down. But look, at the end of the day, the negotiation is on Mark Carney's shoulders. He assured Canadians he could manage Donald Trump, he could deal with Donald Trump, he could get a deal. But at this point, he's the only one who hasn't, and our economy is starting to suffer, and it's because of that the affordability, cost of living crisis continues. Joblessness is rising. The auto sector is in trouble. We've got tariffs on steel and aluminum. We've got some real challenges here. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure that voters prioritize international affairs. It comes down to, I believe, our relationship with the United States. Certainly, we want to stand up for our country and ensure we are heard and we're independent and we're dependent on nobody. But we do have trade relations that are important because they benefit both sides, and we want to adjust those so they work for us, not abandon them.
Now, Trump's leaving the World Economic Forum, claiming he has a deal in terms of Greenland. But if you look at the details, it doesn't seem like there actually is that much of a deal on the table. I think for him, sometimes it's just framing himself as victorious, but it seems maybe he's just learned of a deal that already existed with the United States and Greenland. Yeah,
I'm a little loath to kind of comment on this. If it was a question about Canada's sovereignty, I'd have more to say on it. Look, I know there's a sense that we should be rushing to rally with the Europeans, but don't forget, when Canada was in Trump's crosshairs as the 51st state, Europeans were dead silent about us. We need to manage our relationship with the Americans. We have a unique position that has benefited us, but it also means the downside today is greater than any of our European allies. So we want to ensure that territories are respected and sovereignty, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and support Europe to a degree that it's hurting ourselves. Because again, it wasn't that long ago that it was crickets when the president was coming after our territory and talking about it, and there wasn't a lot of support coming from Europe, with the exception of the king.
And what does it say about NATO, do you think? Does it say anything right now, or would it have to be a greater threat for this to imply anything about the strength of NATO?
Well, here's the problem. And Europe, despite its size and population and wealth, hasn't spent on its military, and that's why they're so dependent on the Americans for their collective security and to lead the war against Russia in Ukraine. In terms of support and finances, I recognize that Ukrainians themselves are doing the fighting there, and the same thing with Canada as well. We have been so miserly on our defense budget. We've unfortunately put ourselves in a position where our defense budgets aren't capable of resisting or being taken seriously, unfortunately, by the U.S. administration. And in terms of economics, okay, we're a small player. I think we have a lot of strength in our relationship with the United States in terms of the minerals and the resources we have and our educated workforce and our ability to produce goods. But Europe is so big. Europe's economy should be a match for the United States, but again, the United States, because of its policies and its priorities, are in a very strong position. So Europe is, I think, made some decisions that have weakened its economy. They haven't invested in their forces, their military, and that's why they're so dependent on the United States. For us, it's less severe because we don't have belligerent neighbors right on our doorstep. Obviously, the north is a challenge with China coming in, and the Russians. They're both being more aggressive. I mean, China's even gone so far to claim itself as a near Arctic power, whatever that means. It's just a claim on the north. But for Europeans, the Russians are right there on the doorstep, but they continue to rely on the U.S. military for their defense.
How do we? I mean, these are. I told you even before the camera started rolling. I have words written down today, and not full questions, because since 2026 started, I mean, Venezuela and everything that happened feels years ago, and that's just a matter of a few weeks ago. How do we, as a country that does feel in the middle, navigate this moment in history? While Carney is delivering a speech that I think a lot of people were very inspired by, nevertheless, before that, he was meeting with China. He was over meeting with Xi to try to negotiate with a big power a trade deal for Canada. So again, the speech stands in contrast to that move. He does see that move as necessary. But how do we fight for our own economy, for our own survival, and our own values in this moment?
Again, I think that's the question a lot of people are asking and wondering. This is where I think we need to ensure that Canada itself is economically as independent as possible. Now, again, with trade relations, that's no country is an island, and there will always be relations, but we need to ensure that we are diversified as much as possible, and here at home are taking full advantage of the God-given resources that we have. Either in terms of what's between the ears of Canadians or what's under our feet in many parts of this country, and we've not done that the last 10 years. We've thumbed our nose at hydrocarbons, whether it's oil production or natural gas, to the point where even before Donald Trump was on the scene, Canada has enough natural gas to completely replace what Russia sells Europe. But we weren't in a position to export it because we have no export terminals on the East Coast, because the Trudeau Liberals were opposed to it. So we need to produce those resources and then sell them abroad, and that's one reason why I think Beijing is interested in a trade accord, is for the oil from Western Canada. Particularly now that their supply of illegal oil coming out of Venezuela is cut off, they're going to need a more reliable supply, and we should be there for the world to sell our food products and our resources. At the same time, our manufacturing as well. And I'm concerned about integration with or partnership with China, whatever you want to call it, because we forget how devious mainland China can be. One moment it's honey and sweetness, and then they're arresting innocent Canadians and putting them in detention for solitary confinement for months and years at a time. China under the communist leadership is a belligerent power, and should be looked at very, very skeptically. Again, I think there's opportunity for trade, but we have to make sure we do it on our values. And the big kind of takeaway from this, I suppose, is on the good news is tariffs are coming on Western canola and here at home, seafood products, including lobster, was 25%. That's now removed, but our biggest market continues to be the United States. We need to make sure the first job of the Prime Minister should be making sure those tariffs don't go up. There's zero right now. We want to maintain that. The cost, though, is going to be the EV imports, where China subsidizes, they overproduce, and do we want to put our auto sector in Ontario at risk? Now, I don't represent an auto area, so this is a question for Ontario and members there. But I do think manufacturing is important in this country as well, and I have concerns about the China deal, in part because of the way they've treated small powers in the past, including their own people.
Okay, so you feel that at least this lobster deal, will it affect New Brunswick's lobster industry in a big way? How important is this?
It's a positive change. Lobster exports to mainland China have declined since the tariffs came in, but according from the Lobster Council in Atlantic Canada, they've diversified their markets to other parts of Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. So it has not been. It was more devastating for the canola producers in Western Canada than it was for our lobster communities in Atlantic Canada. But we want to make sure that the lobster fleet has as many buyers around the world as possible, because that does drive up prices, and it makes our commodities more valuable. So it wasn't a blow, a body blow, but it was a concern. And look, I'd like to have good. Don't get me wrong. I think we should have good relations with China, but recognize when you're dealing with Beijing, there's always another game, and if you displease them, they're either picking up your citizens, or they're causing a lot of economic harm.
There's obviously been a resurgence in talks about a potential pipeline since
Yes.
deals with tariffs of the U.S. have become a thing. I don't think any of us could have predicted this place and time we would be in now. A lot of people that were anti-pipeline before are now very pro. What is the latest, and what do you expect will happen as we go into 2026?
So there is a signed agreement between Alberta and the federal government to work towards building a pipeline to the Pacific coast through British Columbia. I'm dubious it will happen. If it does, hooray. Look, the Prime Minister Carney is now putting up all kinds of conditions and who's going to be involved and who's not, which, okay, you can do, but that does actually undercut the likelihood it's going to get done. Two things. The federal government has the sole authority to approve or reject a pipeline. It doesn't need anyone's input. Nobody gets a veto. The Premier BC does not get a veto. Obviously, I think the government should and wants to take Indigenous consultations seriously, and we see that Indigenous communities are split on this. But again, there is a national interest here as well. And on top of that, don't forget, one of the few bills that the Carney government passed was C5 in the spring. We supported them on it because it clears additional regulatory hurdles that might be there. So the Prime Minister could get this pipeline done. He could ensure it gets done. We'll see. I'm again surrounding Mark Carney. It's the same old Liberal Party that for 10 years opposed pipelines, killed pipelines, stopped pipelines. The BC caucus, Liberal BC caucus, does not support it. We'll see if it's built. I'm skeptical. Look, I'd like to see a Canada where we're building pipelines east, west, including south, to sell our products in all directions, so we get maximum value for it. So we're employing more men and women and communities across this country. But unfortunately we haven't had a focus on that the last 10 years, and I think we should.
Going back to lobster fishing in general, you've been visiting a lot of the wharves in New Brunswick. I have to say St. John, St. Croix. I was about to say New Brunswick Southwest, but I've seen you over on Deer Island recently, on Campobello. What's the latest on the status of wharves in our area, and how the federal government can be helpful?
So I think on the positive, there's a recognition on both sides. That's Liberal Conservative. We need to spend more on our federal wharves. In the last election, which was very close, the Conservatives promised to double the budget, and the Carney Liberals promised to almost double it, increase it by $250 million over the mandate. Sadly, though, in the budget that came out a few months ago, there wasn't an extra nickel for federal wharves. And because of a decade of underinvestment, they're now work is overdue, and we're seeing the consequences. Last year, Sealy's Wharf was condemned. We've seen the mess on North Head on Grand Manan, which was announced in 2019. Pardon me, it was announced in 2019, and now it's frozen. And then recently, there was right before Christmas, there was a wharf on Campobello that was restricted. It's not been condemned yet, but I am concerned about its longevity. It's now restricted. You can walk on it, but that is it. And the two other federal wharves on Campobello both have weight restrictions of various degrees. They both need work to be safe and to function properly. So investments are needed. I'm going to continue to press the fisheries minister to focus on these wharves, because the Sealy's Wharf, while I think it was a mistake to close it, the fleet, the fishing boats there could go to neighboring harbors. Well, in Campobello, the closest neighboring harbor is Lubec, Maine, and I don't think we want to encourage our fishermen to be landing Canadian lobsters in Maine for all kinds of reasons we've talked about, standing up for ourselves and being independent. So the government's got some work to do here, and it's not just in this part of the country. This is a problem throughout the Maritimes. These federal wharves are an extension of highways. It's how we get our products to market around the world. So they very much go hand in hand with what Mr. Carney's talking about. But that's my frustration. Mr. Carney talks a lot. He's not delivering. So we need to expand these markets. We need to diversify. But we also have to make sure we are developing the infrastructure in this country to get those products to market. And that means both infrastructure like roads and highways and wharves, just like it means the infrastructure to produce the resources we have under our feet.
Why do you think wharves sometimes don't get priority when to us in this part of the world they really should be considered the same way?
Well, look, I before the last election, the defeated Liberal fisheries minister put half the wharf budget in her own bloody riding to try to save herself. Now, fortunately, she got defeated. It's because the Liberals have politicized it. I try to kind of stay above politics when I talk about this because we have to get it done. I like to work with my Liberal counterparts to make sure these are priorities. But that happened. Half the budget, $50 million, went into her own bloody riding. That is unacceptable. I am very happy she lost. She deserved to lose, and that is a big reason why. Parliament goes back next week. You're getting me in the spirit. The Liberals are just not good at delivering on infrastructure. They talk a good game, but it's one thing that I think we had a good record on in office was delivering infrastructure dollars for roads, communities, small hauls throughout Atlantic Canada, and federal wharves as well. And 10 years later, I see the debacle on Grand Manan. Whitehead Island is in. They need some dredging there. Their wharf is in disrepair, where they can't even use parts of it because of the safety concerns. And I can go through this side of New Brunswick as well, in point to wharves as well that need work as well. So it comes down to priority and follow through, and I just don't believe the Liberals are up to the job of focusing on them and getting them done for small communities across the country.
I saved this topic for closer to the end of the show because this show will air before this happens and after, but do you have a leadership review at the Calgary Convention? Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on Pierre Poilievre as he goes into this leadership review. And I don't think you have to say which way you think it'll go. It's up to you. Well, I know that it'll be airing after as well.
So Conservatives across the country are meeting in Calgary on January 31st, February 1st weekend, and it's a mandatory review that our leaders face after an unsuccessful election. And while our seat count went up, we have 25 new members of Parliament on the Conservative bench now. It still requires a leadership review of our leader, Pierre Poilievre. So there'll be thousands of delegates going to Calgary. I expect Pierre will do well. I think he's going to win. I think he'll do well. And it'll be one more kind of obstacle to get over as he begins to focus more and more on a future election. The election for us was disappointing. There's no doubt about that. While we had the highest percentage of vote we'd had since the '88 election, we consolidated our vote. On the Liberal side, they outdid us by 2 percentage points. So it was a close election. They did that on the strength of the NDP vote collapsing. And that's going to change for Mr. Carney. The NDP's in the process now of electing a new leader. They'll do so in the spring. I expect that's going to give the NDP support. So I think we're going to be in a very, very competitive political environment over the next couple of years, now that we will have our leadership question behind us, the NDP of new leader come the spring, and Mark Carney now having to deliver on his fancy words from Switzerland. He's now going to have to deliver on it and improve the lives of Canadians. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to affordability and safer streets, twinned with the sovereignty of this country. And we'll see if Mr. Carney, how he does. I found him so far lacking, but voters will decide in due course. As you look ahead at 2026, what are your main focuses at this point in time? This is the final minute of the show. I'm going back to Ottawa with a real focus on wars, because it's gone from concern to now a real problem that if they're not fixed, it's going to be a huge economic problem. The Liberals are moving ahead with their so-called gun buyback. I call it a gun grab, where they've now put a deadline, March 31st, for gun owners to say, I'd like to participate. They're planning to spend $250 million to purchase tens of thousands of guns. But I'm not sure law-abiding gun owners are going to comply, because they've followed the rules as they have for years, and they're not the problem. It is illegal guns coming into the United States that are the problem. That will continue, I think, to dominate the debate, and it'll be to stand up for New Brunswick Southwest and to ensure our voice is heard in Parliament, to keep doing that. Well, I appreciate you always making time to come in here, John, and I look forward to when you're home again for our next talk. Happy to do so. The flying begins this weekend, and home weekends. Our next recess is in February, and again in March. So if you're open to it, I'd be happy to come back. I appreciate it so much. It's wonderful to have you. My guest today has been MP for St. John, St. Croix, John Williamson. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Town and Province.